Okay, so after you have set up all of your equipment and you're ready to go, let's talk about the software features for 9.0. I'm going to go directly to the self-study manual and walk through this with you. So let's talk about some of the vocabulary, and we're going to go through all of these items that are numbered and lettered on the screen. Now this is the introduction to IM in your self-study manual, and as you can see, there are a lot of vocabulary pieces to this. So what I want to start with is this picture right here where it says a menu bar. So what I'm talking about, if you watch my mouse, A is the menu bar, and this is where you're going to set up or open a new file. And if you remember that from the live course, you just click on it. It gives you a drop-down menu. You can either open on this computer, open in the eClinic, or start a new file. And it's very simple. You walk through it very easily. So then B is your control panel, and that consists of number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 right here. Obviously, you've got your counter, that is your repetitions. You've got your tempo, number 2. You've got your difficulty settings, your SRO, and your burst settings. That's all part of the control panel. Now remember, if you're in regular training, you're going to be able to set the repetitions and the minutes yourself. But I want you to recall from the training that when you open 9.0, it defaults to short form assessment, and you cannot mess with the settings in short form because the short form is the default setting. So in regular training, you can modify the tempo, you can modify the difficulty. SRO is how close to 0 you are. Remember, SRO stands for super right on, and if you have the traffic light icons up as you were demonstrated in the live course, that would be your greens. Every time you hit a green, it's SRO. The new thing that I want you to remember about this software is that you can now set SRO from 15 to 60, and 60 makes it easier. If you're set it at 60, that makes it easier for your clients to hit a green, because now if they're within 60 milliseconds while they're clapping, they get a green. A burst is how many greens or how many SROs in a row that your client gets. So let's keep going down here, okay? So what I want you to know also is C, right down here, is the sound volumes panel. And what I'm talking about is right here with C. Reference tone is the cowbell, okay? Guide sound is the buzzer. And that's what you hear when you're 1 over the set difficulty level. So if your difficulty level is set at 100, at 101 you're going to hear and that's a guide. That's a guide to tell you you're really early or you're really late. Remember, you're going to hear the guide sounds in each ear individually. If you're really early, you're going to hear it in your left ear. If you're really late, you're going to hear it in your right ear. I like to think of the guide sound, the as my fence. If you get too close to the fence, you're going to get shocked or buzzed, okay? So if you're too close to the parameters I've set with the difficulty, you're going to hear the buzzer. This is where you can make it easier or harder. If you want your client hearing less of the sound, you're going to set your difficulty higher. If you want them hearing more, if they're a higher functioning client, you want to set your difficulty level lower so that they hear the guide sounds more. Because what the guide sounds, the whole idea of the guide sounds is to pull your client in toward the SRO setting, in toward 0. Now RO, this volume setting sounds like a rubber band twang. Twang. And this is one that your clients will hear most often. The SRO is a reward tone. Ding. It's a very pleasant, psychologically good feedback. Ding, you're right where we want you to be. The ding is what you hear when you're within the SRO setting. So if I've got my SRO set at 15, if my client hits and scores, at 15 milliseconds or lower, they will hear ding. So that's something to keep in mind. Your SRO volume is attached to your SRO setting. Okay, so how often your client gets that good auditory feedback, that positive reward tone. Your guide tone is attached to your difficulty setting, how often your client gets the negative feedback. So that is something to keep in mind. Oftentimes when I'm training a client, I will turn off the middle twang of the rubber band, because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to train them to stay away from the outside of the fence, the and to get back into the middle, which is 0, and hear the positive, ding. Sometimes it's too complicated to leave in the sound of the rubber band. You can also here set the master level of the volume, and you can set the gaming sound right here. This is a background sound. The game is a background sound. Okay, so let's keep going on, and let's talk about another really important thing, the traffic light button. This is your stop and your go. Now, if your count in is on, and I'm going to show you that right here, this is where you see what training you're doing, and this will be on the upper right-hand corner of your screen of the dashboard on the visuals. So if you hit go, the green traffic light, and your number 14 count in is checked, you will have 5 beats before you can hit stop. It's basically 5 beats to get an idea of what the tempo is going to feel like and kind of get yourself in rhythm before the computer starts keeping track of your hits. So that's what count in does. If you're wondering why when you hit go, you can't hit stop right away, that's because of the count in. Okay, so E is your training panel. You've got number 12, and this is where you pick the task. This is where you choose short form, which is the default. Remember, every time you open 9.0, it comes to default at short form. This is where you will choose long form. This is where you will choose regular training, in-motion training, attend over time. So this is an important thing for you to remember. And then number 13 is the exercise selector. Now remember, it's very easy to put yourself into auditory mode by checking the guide sounds. And auto difficulty is the most advanced difficulty setting. It's likely with new clients you will not be using auto difficulty very often. I have only used auto difficulty myself when I have trained high-performing athletes or executives. And remember, these definitions are here for your use. I would download this manual and I would just have it out. In fact, I've actually laminated it for my staff, and it sits right next to our computer. This is the member screen, and this will be right below the control panel screen up here, okay, that we talked about before, the training panel. Right below this, on the right-hand side of your screen, is the member screen, okay, and this contains the trainer information, number 17. That's you. So if this was open in my computer, I would see April Christopherson here. And then the client's name is the trainee, and it's going to just give you an initial there. Down on the bottom, in the bottom middle, you have the performance status area, and this is down on the very bottom of your screen. This is going to give you your running scores. Okay, so this is kind of important because one of the things that I train in my live courses is that if you are clapping and you're doing a task, let's just say you're doing regular training with both hands, and number 19, the task average, or the H area, this I am indicator, is not illuminated and it's not changing, you're likely having performance issues with your equipment. Oftentimes it's just a connection issue. You might just need to reconnect it to your computer with the USB port, or you might need to just check that your batteries are good in your triggers. But this is what gives you a running tally of what your client is doing, okay? This is also what tells you right here in number 28 if your MCU, your master control unit, is connected or not. And then number 29 is the actual identity of the training member of your client, okay? So this is nice because in this performance status area right here, you can actually give your client feedback as they're training. So if I was training Caroline, I would say, okay, Caroline, you've gotten 1 burst. That's amazing. Let's go for 2. Or, oh, my goodness, Caroline, you've gotten 3 in a row so far, and you've got another minute to go on this task. Let's shoot for 4 in a row. So this is a very important area as well for giving your client feedback. Okay, so also in this area, I'm going to go back up to the very top where we talked about before, right here. What I want you to see is up here at the very top on A, the menu bar. It doesn't show it, but this is where, if you watch my mouse, this is where you change your training visuals and you can illuminate the games. You can illuminate a moving screen. So this is where you change your screen activity. The result view, this is where you change and you see if it's data list view or regular. If you have data list view, after your client is done training, you're going to get a screenshot of everything your client has done for that day by date, by exercise, and by score. So that's kind of nice if you want to see for that day what your client has done. Regular view is just going to give you the score and the percentages for that task only. So result view is where you change that. Reports, pretty self-explanatory. This is where you go in and you get your short form reports, your long form reports. This is where you get your feedback on how often your clients have trained, what they did yesterday versus today. Exercises, this is where the videos are. So if you want to give yourself a refresher of what does exercise number 13 look like or what should it look like, go to exercises and click on the view and it will show you a quick video. It's really cool. It pops up, so that's awesome. The options bar right here on the training menu is where you reload your software with minutes. Okay, so this is where you would do that. Now, this is a really important one too, help. This is where you troubleshoot and you connect to tech support. So there is always help available, which is why I'm showing you this self-study manual, because throughout this self-study manual, you can actually see exactly what to do, and it's laid out so nice. So under help, again, you can get help or you can get a history of why IM was created, okay? So this is a very helpful piece of information. I just wanted to bring it to your attention. What I would recommend you do is after today's webinar, go live with your software with 9.0. Have this book available to you to the right of your computer, and then click on each of these icons. Play with your software. Look at what happens when you hover over every single one of these. If you hover in live time, it will give you a definition of every single one of these things that I have just talked about with you today. So I want you to remember that and do some exercises on your own so that you're familiar with it. Thank you for joining me today. I hope this was informational for you. I hope it was helpful. We want the best for you, and as always, please let us know if there's any help that you need in addition to this webinar. Have a wonderful day.